Well, welcome to this very special episode. I guess I always get to do special episodes with Pat. So this very special episode from Culturenomics with Arjun, which is actually going to be focusing on the Singapore Fintech Festival, which is in November of this year, the middle of November. I'm sort of I'm in a privileged position because I I'm one of the few ambassadors of SFF. So I thought it would be a good idea to get Pat Patel, who's CEO of Elevandi, on the podcast with me. Unfortunately, this is a virtual podcast because Pat's in Singapore, and we did something very similar for the Inclusive FinTech Forum, which was in Kigali earlier in the year. So that's a long introduction. With that, I'd like to sort of welcome Pat on the call.
Thank you very much, Arjun. And you are a part of the extended family of Elevandi. I hope you appreciate that. And one day I will come to the couch. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully mid next month. It's in the diary, so we'll definitely make time.
Excellent. So Pat, I'll tell you, I think it might be worth because this is going to be broadcasted to the wider sort of audience which follows Culturenomics. It would be useful if you could just give me a 30-second snapshot on who and what is Elevandi.
Sure. So Elevandi is a company that was set up by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and we have a simple mission, and that is to bring the public and private sectors together to really drive the growth and adoption of fintech globally. And so now we've kind of spread our wings. We've expanded into Africa, into Japan, into Europe. And so now we're beginning to kind of start to realize some of the dreams and ambitions that we started off with a year and a half ago. And the key bit to all of this is joining the dots, convening the right people, and having some tangible outcomes that advance the industry that we all operate in.
Excellent, thank you. So coming back to SFF this year, last year was a success, was a big success. I think you had about 60,000 delegates who were at the event. It was spread across pretty much an entire week, and I think everybody who attended came away with sort of something to talk about, which is a lot to say for events these days, because one thing I will like to say is that there is a bit of an exhaustion with regards to the number of events there are which take place globally, right? And so therefore people are getting a little bit more discerning in terms of where they want to spend their time and effort. Would it be sort of fair if I kind of put you on the spot? I know the agenda is still in the stage of formation. Things are up on the internet, on the website already. But would it be fair for me to sort of put you on the spot and ask you a little bit more about, what does SFF involve this year?
Yeah, no, it's a question I'm getting asked every day. And so one of the things I want to kind of refer back to the point you made earlier around, you could probably go to a fintech event every week of the calendar year if you wanted to. I think where SFF is different, it's in its 8th year. And the thing that makes it special is it's a dialogue between policymakers, so the policy element, the financial services community, and the tech community. And I think this is where it differs from a lot of other activities, because it's not just national, it's not just even regional, it's now become a global activity. So it's kind of like the global playground in which all of these key players from these 3 different segments, whether you're a policymaker, regulator, or government, or you're in the banking space or fintech, or you're a pure tech company, it's where everyone kind of comes together. And, for us, that is probably the key bit for this. Singapore is the destination, it's the venue for this, but it's the global outlook that frames what's happened this year and what we can expect for next year, really shining a light on where those opportunities are, but also some of the challenges, because if we don't know about these challenges, or we're not kind of prepared for these challenges, it can create a lot of issues going down the line, and we've seen that with a number of the high profile organizations that have struggled at the beginning of this year. And so when we think about the agenda, one of the things that my chairman, so Sopnandu Mahanti, and my team have been doing this year is we have spent a lot of time traveling, whether it's running our own activities or working and attending some of the other activities that are going on around the world. So, we've been to Japan this year, we've traveled across the whole of Southeast Asia. Sopnandu spent time in the Middle East, we were in Africa, in Kigali, we spent a little bit of time in Ghana, we're in Europe with the Point Zero Forum, and then there's a really cool event called the Milken Institute run in LA. And so all of these insights and the communities that we engage with, we bring them all across to the festival. And that also helps with the insight on what's going on. How do we frame what we should be covering at the festival this year? And we've kind of put that down into kind of 4 buckets. One is around re-architecting the monetary system, because there is a lot of economic inequality. And so with the advent of some of these new technologies, so whether it's stable coins, CBDCs, even tokenized deposits, and some of the ways in which we're leveraging kind of digital infrastructure, as we've seen in India and Singapore and other jurisdictions, how is this changing how we view the monetary system? How is it making more, creating more equality? And so there will be a lot of content that will be playing to this, new way of thinking, whether it's people, processes, or systems that can make a difference in making transactions or making the current system faster, fairer, and more transparent. The second kind of bucket is kind of heavily anchored around the future risks. As we've seen this year, if you're not prepared and have the right risk frameworks in place, you're going to come unstuck, whether it's tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And so it's not just around economic risk, it's geopolitical, it's tech risks, it's also climate and cyber. And so there'll be a whole suite of content that will be going on throughout the week around these risks and how we should be thinking about them, framing them, bringing these kind of different processes in place within organizations, but also at a national level, because it's the policy piece. We're not just thinking about the industry, we're thinking about clusters of countries, we're thinking about the global kind of economic climate. And then the third piece is an interesting one where we've kind of covered it in kind of patches throughout the years, but we're doubling down this year because we feel it's a big need. And if you ask any government around the world, one of the big concerns they have outside of their own economies is around the talent pipeline. How can we create this talent pipeline? How are we kind of ensuring that there isn't a freeze? How are we ensuring that the next wave of entrepreneurs can get what they need to be able to build their businesses? And as you're fully aware, a lot of countries were hit during COVID, certainly the small to medium-sized businesses. And so as we've kind of clearly come out of COVID, or most of us have type thing, there is still some challenges that remain, and trying to boost that SME sector is going to be extremely important. And so we're partnering with universities and a whole host of associations to really start to frame opportunities, start to frame some of the educational courses, but also trying to help be that bridge to drive entrepreneurship, but to drive new skill sets that are sorely needed for this future kind of monetary system. And then the last one, which is kind of the anchor thematic, and that's around AI. And in some corners, AI seems to be quite a taboo these days, or a bit of a swear word, but it's something where we feel quite passionate about that. It's not just generative AI, it's the broader AI landscape. And what are those tangible applications of artificial intelligence? So a lot of the customers we've been speaking to are going to be showcasing some interesting projects that are either in prototype or just about to be launched. And so there'll be some tangible, return on investment applications that we'll be talking about, as well as some of the divisive kind of debates that are currently going on. So should AI be regulated? Should it be self-regulated? Is there a need for this? And all of those elements will come across because, as I mentioned, it's that policy meets finance meets technology. and you get that holistic conversation to really frame how we should be approaching some of these topic areas. And so that's kind of the four bucket areas. And when I think about some of the speakers that we're due to actually announce over the coming week or so, we've got some real big hitters that are coming in. So we're very grateful to have Ajay Bhanga, who is the new kind of president of the World Bank. And so he's going to be giving a very, very interesting talk about how he's looking to really take the World Bank to the next level and ensure it remains relevant, and some of the initiatives and projects that they're working on. We also have Anil Vadvani, who is the new CEO of Prudential. And so this will be one of the first times he'll be speaking at a major event. We have Bill Winters, which obviously Bill Winters from Stan Chart. We have Eric Jing, and Eric Jing is the president of Ant Group. This will be the first time he does a talk outside China in, I think, about 3 years or so. So it's quite a special one, certainly for Ant Group to be pushing or allowing their president to come across. And then we have some of the governors, so Francois Villeroy, who is the governor of the Banque de France, so one of the most important central banks in the world today. We have, obviously Ravi Menon, and I'm sure you're aware this will be his last festival, so it will be a little bit emotional for all of us. And, as you know, one of the key things for the festival has been his signature. Every year he does a State of the FinTech address. And so this will be the very last one he does as the governor or the MD of the Monetary Authority. And then we have a handful of other investors. So we're currently looking to kind of finalize Vinod Khosla. At the moment, it's looking likely it will be virtual, but we're trying everything to try and bring them across to Singapore. And then we have senior leaders from kind of Ribbit Capital and Andreessen Horowitz as well. So this is where I really say that this activity, it's very unlike any others, because apart from the policy meets finance meets tech, it's basically all of the movers and shakers from multiple regions around the world, all kind of coalescing in Singapore during the 15th to the 17th of November. And as you can imagine, we're super pumped about it.
No, it seems like quite a lineup of speakers, at least for someone like me who's quite excited about a few of these names, and I look forward to it. But if I may add to that question, Pat, for people like me who've been fortunate enough to have attended a few of these festivals in the past, the SFF is more than just what happens within the four walls of the expo, right? As a friend of mine once summarized it, summed it up very well, which said that this is sort of 4 days or 24 hours of non-stop activity, and then you need a fifth day to sort of recover from everything. Sounds more like Glastonbury, less like a fintech festival. But it'd be great if you could give us a flavor of what is being planned or what's currently in the works in terms of around the sort of the main event, if I may use that term.
Yeah, sure. So just if we cover the evening activities, which is always interesting, we're expecting anywhere between 50 to 100 kind of side events that will vary in shapes and sizes. We have our own kind of major event, which is the Wednesday night, which this year we are taking over a whole street. We did parts of it last year, whereas this year we're literally closing off a whole, one of the key streets in Singapore. We're closing the whole place up. There's about 20 odd bars and restaurants in which we'll be kind of vacating or kind of taking over those restaurants and bars. And we'll have a DJ suspended for some nice music. But it'll be an opportunity to kind of connect with the whole audience, because it's very difficult to fit in 60 to 65,000 people, whereas this street should be able to cater for a large percentage of these folks. And then what we've decided to do is keep that street open throughout the rest of the week. So we have our industry party on the Wednesday. Then on the Thursday and the Friday, there'll still be the availability to come along and meet with people. So it's kind of like a week-long street party in the evenings at a place called Club Street. The other place is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but a lot of the embassies tend to run their own parties and gatherings and networking events, more networking events in the evenings. And so this year we have, I think it's about 35 to 40 different international pavilions that have all been closely associated with the embassies here. And as you can imagine, some of these ambassadors have amazingly luxurious houses. So they'll be running activities not only during the day, but in the evenings, where they'll bring kind of curated sets of individuals together to clearly conduct business, but also network and see where there are commonalities to collaborate on initiatives. And then there's also the investor events. So we have a lot of family offices here and investors. So they'll be running activities throughout the week. And then you have the banks and the startups and the payments companies who will all be running kind of small side events, whether it's kind of breakfast briefings or evening activities in some of the nice locations that Singapore has to offer, whether it's the Marina Bay Sands or even some of the rooftops dotted around Singapore. There'll always be something to do. I think the biggest problem will be is the choice you make on where you decide to go. I know some people tend to do 3 or 4 things in one night, come back with like a whole stack full of business cards. But I tend to try and double down on one thing and then make the best of it and then get ready for the next day. But outside of that, I just wanted to say that the first day that we see it is the kind of the pre event, which is on the Tuesday, is something we're doing at the Marina Bay Sands, where we have taken up a whole space and we're running something called Elevandi Insights. So that's where we'll have the capital meets policy dialogue. So we'll see a lot of regulators there with a lot of investors of all shapes and sizes, whether family offices, sovereign wealth funds, or VCs. And there'll be a curated dialogue around AI. It's the future roadmap for regulation, what that looks like, but also where investors are plowing their money into which types of AI. And so that will be quite a curated dialogue. And then in addition to that, we have a series of roundtables. And then these roundtables are super interesting because we're working with organizations like the World Economic Forum, the World Bank will be there, IFC, the Banco d'Italia are running some, the Bank of England, the Milken Institute are running as well, and then the Bank of International Settlements, so the BIS Innovation Hub. And so we're collaborating on point topics where we believe that a public-private dialogue is essential to either advance the thinking in CBDCs or tokenized deposits, or even strands of AI or digital banking. So it's kind of like, I think there are at least 15 to 20 different roundtables that will be going on. And this is kind of like an invite-only activity where 1,000 people will be coming together and they will be 1,000 leaders from public and private sector. And hopefully that's the piece where you form those relationships, because in smaller kind of settings, you can really start to build those bridges. And then throughout the week of the festival, Wednesday to kind of the Friday, we've created these zones. So we have to curate the experience. For those that haven't been to the festival, it's basically 6 giant warehouse hangars all kind of rolled into one. And that's how we can accommodate, close to 60,000. Otherwise, it's super, super tricky to. And so what we've decided to do this year is create zones, so you can decide where you want to spend your time. So if you want to spend your time in a tech zone where there'll be companies, lounges, and a big stage, or you want to spend your time in the founders zone where we have the famous founders peak, which are kind of TED talks delivered by founders, or the investor lounge where you can meet with investors, or you want to spend your time in the regulation zone where we'll have regulators offering office hours. So if you're looking to expand into new jurisdictions, the chances are you'll get the opportunity to engage with some of the regulators from that particular jurisdiction to kind of understand, what the framework is like, what the outlook is like for the next kind of 1 to 3 years. Outside of that, we have the ESG zone. So for those that are looking at saving the planet and are focused around the E side of ESG, you can kind of get involved and be involved in some of the lounges there, or even on stage. And then the last zone, and I know I'm carrying on a little bit here, but I'm so passionate about it, is we have a talent zone. And that talent zone is in partnership with a number of universities and associations. It's where we're running our hackathon. We're running a number of kind of tech coding challenges as well. But it'll be the place where those that are looking to come in, or even those that are looking for great talent, that's the place to go. And then the last area, very, very last area, I promise I'll stop after this, is the international zone, where we have all of those pavilions. So 35 to 40 pavilions from, around the world, basically from parts of Europe to Africa, all the way to Latam, and then across the whole of Asia. And I think there will be one or two from the Middle East as well that will be involved in this as well. So that will be the place of, if you're looking for startups, you're looking to speak to the communities, then that's a great place to kind of spend your time. So you can kind of curate your experience depending on your interests. And we try to kind of help, people to navigate that to ensure they have a good productive SFF.
So two sort of notes to self here. One is carry a carry a digital visiting card, because I think it's humanly impossible to carry so many physical ones, and have a free flowing supply of energy drinks, right? Because you got to make through a lot during the day and night. I guess they're my two takeaways. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Pat. I'm going to use this as an opportunity. I've talked to you about this in the past, right? We in the Middle East, we started it in the UAE. Now we spread it across to KSA. We created a grassroots community. We call it FinTech Tuesdays. The reason we call it FinTech Tuesdays is because it was set up on a Tuesday. So there's no other big reason behind why it is. It's grown very, very rapidly. We now have over 2,500, like 2,200, 2,300 members who are all vetted. And what I mean by vetted is that they've got to be associated with the fintech ecosystem, which includes founders, which includes a number of incumbents, whether bankers, insurers, investors, professional services providers, so on and so forth. And, people like myself who are sort of either professional services advisors or commentators. Now, within this, another sort of fellow SFF ambassador, Sanjeev Purushottam, and I sort of kicked off something called the Road to SFF, right? And our objective was to get as many of our members, right, and obviously people who might not be members of the FinTech Tuesdays community, but a part of the the Middle East fintech ecosystem, to come to SFF, right? And well, whether we all come together as a cohort and we all wear our T-shirts like I'm wearing today or not, that's yet to be seen. But thanks a lot. You have one too. I gave you one last time we met in Kigali, right? One of the questions I think a number of founders, a number of early stage founders have sort of posed to me, right? The investment of time, effort, and resources, right, of coming to SFF are not small, right? It is, it's a long way away. It's an expensive sort of trip, if I may use that term. And we're going through a period where most founders and startups are sort of struggling to get hold of capital, right? So help me help you here in a sense. Give me, and I don't want it to be a sales pitch, but tell me, if I'm a founder and early stage, middle stage, middle stage, growth stage startup, give me the reasons. Give me this 5-6 reasons why or maybe more or less, why I should be an SFF this year.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and I like to flip that on its head. And I'll come on to this right at the end. But can you afford not to be there? Everything I've outlined. This is the global meeting place for fintech. There are many activities that go on around the world, but very few that are able to bring all of the key leaders or a number of key leaders from different jurisdictions all coming in to one place. I think that's the important part here. So if you're serious about your business and you're serious about developing that to the next stage, I think it's a question more of, can you afford not to be here? And I know it may sound a little bit arrogant here, but I firmly believe that, having been in this space for a number of years and worked at other activities as well, I can honestly say that policy meets finance meets technology is a magical recipe, especially when you overlay that with the global nature of this. It's a place where investments, there are investment opportunities, because we bring a lot of family offices to the table, VCs from around the world, and sovereign wealth funds as well. So that's kind of one element there. If that's something that founders are looking for, there is a great opportunity. We have investor lounges and founders talks and all of these things. The second piece is, if you're looking for market entry, so whether that's Southeast Asia or wider Asia or even into Europe and the US, this is the ideal place to be having those conversations, because there'll be a number of important individuals from these jurisdictions that will be in Singapore during that week. The next one is around business development, which is a clear one. If you're looking at new customer segments, or even existing kind of segments that you're currently in, this is a great place to meet those communities. So if you're after banks, then there is a high volume of banks going to be there. If you're looking to sell into tech companies, you'll have the same quorum of tech companies around. So that's kind of the business development angle. And then the last one here is more around validating, because a lot of people I speak to, there is this big talk, certainly in the digital asset space, around building. It's a time to build when there is a tough market conditions. And so this is the perfect place to validate some of the products or concepts, or even your innovation pipeline and things that you're kind of thinking about strategically. You can sound those off with individuals, like-minded individuals from different jurisdictions at SFF. And that's the piece where you get, if you have scale, you have the right curation of different programs and initiatives that are going on through the week, then you can manage your time. And one thing, we say quite frequently is that you can get 6 months worth of business development or education done within those 3 days. So I kind of flip it back to say, can you afford not to be there? If this is the opportunity to grow your business, get your leads that you need for 2024, get them in now, because the mid-November is the perfect opportunity to start building that pipeline for the first 6 months of 2024.
No, you've got a fair point. So can I further put you on the spot? Are our FinTech Tuesdays members going to get something special?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've discussed this. So one of the things I think the members should absolutely get is not just the discounts, but how can you give me a number of those from your community are coming, then we can see what types of events they can get to outside of the 3-day program. Because as I said, our relationship goes back now from since the beginning of this year, and I hope it will go on for many years. And so your community is an important one for us. So yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to try and come over mid-October, because I know you guys are running a number of key activities that we would love to be a part of as well. And it's good to connect with your people that are part of the FinTech Tuesdays community.
No, thank you. Thank you. So, Pat, that's all there is from me. Do I have to answer any questions for you?
So I had a whole raft of questions for you, but I kind of feel quite sympathetic. You've had a tough week, and the fact that you're managing to do this podcast is true testament to you. So all I want to say is looking forward to seeing you again, and I will have plenty of questions when maybe you can come onto one of my podcasts, and the roles will reverse.
No, I
love
look
that.
forward to it. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to Naveen and Sagari earlier today about Founders Speak, and possibly inviting a few of our founders from the Middle East to either fill in the form themselves or get nominated to come and possibly get invited to the Founders Speak, or the Founders Circle as you call it. I think it sounded terribly exciting. So that's something we will be talking to the wider group about in the Tuesdays group. But with that, I'd like to say thank you. You've got a lot to do over the next, I guess you've got just under 8 weeks now. Yep. No, it's coming faster than you could say. You can count the days. So with that, best of luck, and I hope to see you in October in the UAE.
It would be my pleasure. And when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work.
Well, fair enough. I do agree with you there. I do agree with you. Thank you, Pat. Cheers.
Thank you so much.